This is So Many Sequels. I'm Garrett.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm David. It's so strange about Josh.
I know it's weird whenever the guy that normally pitches to everybody's out. Like we went all out of order. Andrew still was second somehow, but what are you gonna do? Yes, Josh is out, and so are the knives, because that's what we're talking about today. That is a pro transition right there.
That is a segue.
Well done.
Knives Out, 2019 murder mystery whodunit, written and directed by Rian Johnson, and stars an incredible cast. Just to name everyone: Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Toni Collette, Lakeith Stanfield. As I was writing it, I kept going, dang, these people just keep being worthy of mentioning. And then you have Christopher Plummer as well. It follows Craig as Master Detective Benoit Blanc and his investigation of the death of Harlan Thrombey and his wealthy and dysfunctional family. What does everybody think of Knives Out?
I want to lead off by saying that you may have briefly heard us talk about Knives Out at various points, because in my research prior to this, we kept talking about we needed to do a movie that we were trying to find a Thanksgiving movie, and there's not a lot of Thanksgiving movies, but Knives Out came out Thanksgiving 2019, and we all loved it. And there's sort of like a general consensus that like this is now a Thanksgiving movie because it came out during that time of year.
Yeah.
We kept talking about. We did this podcast already, didn't we? We all could have swore we talked about Knives Out like at length, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a combination of a few things, because we haven't. We've never done a podcast about Knives Out. We talked about it a lot off pod, right? Mm-hmm. We just generally.
Yeah, as movie fans and just a good movie in general, I'm sure we've talked about it at length.
But I discovered that in our best of 2019, we talked about it for like 5 straight minutes. And in our review of the Oscars for 2019, we talked about Knives Out quite a lot because it was nominated for best screenplay. There was a collective bit there in the early 2020 and late 2019 where we were just talking about Knives Out a lot, and those like 12 minutes of conversation collectively stuck in Garrett and my wife's memory so much that they're like, no, you have an episode, and they like had to prove it to themselves. They're like scrolling through.
Yeah, when I said that, I was confident. I was like, the reason we're doing Knives Out is because we do consider it a Thanksgiving movie. We'll get into that a little bit later, but it really was like, I swear to God, we've already done a Knives Out movie. Like, we can't do it again. We've got to pick something else. But no.
No, but if you do want to hear our initial thoughts about Knives Out, go back to our best of 2019, and you can hear a little bit of the preview. But the funny thing about that is, in that 5 minutes, we talked about how exciting it was for a completely original movie to be in the theaters. And that's still the same feeling I have here. It's such a refreshing film, Knives Out. Just everything about it from top to bottom. It's a great ensemble cast. It's an original story. It feels like nothing else, and yet feels familiar. It takes that sort of well-worn material of a whodunit or a murder mystery and kind of turns it on its head. Right away, they show you what happens. Normally in a murder mystery, you get some people established, then somebody dies mysteriously in the dark, and it's trying to figure it out who it is for the rest of the time. But they show you in this movie up front who did it and kind of how they did it. So it immediately takes something you're comfortable with and says, okay, but we're not going to do it the same way you're used to, right? Turns it on its head a little bit. So now you come into this place of comfort, but now you're kind of uncomfortable. Like, you don't know how it's going to, like, that first time you watch it, you're like, well, now I have no idea how this is going to end, because I'm on the side of the criminal, I guess. You're watching it, you're in it with Ana de Armas, and you don't want her to get caught. Normally in a murder mystery, you're all with the detective, and you're like, oh, how looking for clues, how are they going to figure it out? But you're kind of sitting there going like, oh man, I hope Marta can figure out how to not get caught. It's such a different movie, so exciting, and I can't wait to talk about how it's kind of spawned its own series now.
So on the subject of whodunits and mysteries and murder mysteries, normally what we get is like we get this. It's like a hard, brooding genre, and it takes itself very seriously. This, although it's a murder mystery, it's a bit of it's a comedy. Like it's a comedy of like watching everything unfold and just how quirky and how messed up this family is when they realize, oh my God, we don't have anything anymore. And it's all around just an absolute delight to see a movie like this come out, because we don't get movies like these too often. You know, this is something that's totally original. It's not based on anything. And it's just a good old fashioned time. There's nothing that you can say like, well, it shifts the political territory, or there's something that is trying to like spread out, or anything like an agenda or anything. It's trying to like spread out. What we're seeing here is we're just seeing what's going on here. Somebody in the room committed a murder, and it needs to be solved. It's an all-around fun film. The fact that we're still talking about it 2 years later proves that it still has like legs to stand on, because most murder mysteries don't do that. They just don't do that. And the fact that we don't have that anymore is, one, kind of a shame. Two, I hope this kind of kickstarts something. So this is very reminiscent of like 30s, like 30s and 40s movie mysteries, especially with like Charlie Chan and just some other things like that. But yeah, like this is something that I really, really enjoyed when it came out. I do want to talk about the Thanksgiving movie here in a little bit, but for now, I'm going to conclude it with, this is one of my favorite movies of the last decade.
I think that, I don't want to spend too much time.
That's very interesting, Andrew, because it was not in your top 10 movies of 2019. Interesting note. I'll just leave that there. It was only in Josh and I's top 10 of 2019.
Wow.
Well, I recently listened to that podcast, so
called out.
Well, shots fired.
Yeah. How about that?
It wasn't better than Apollo 10 or whatever.
I don't want to spend too much time on the fact that this is a great movie. I don't really have much else to say other than that. But I do want to jump into the mystery movie stuff, because that is a genre that I very much enjoy. Growing up, I watched Clue just, whenever, anytime, any moment, I would turn on Clue and I would watch.
As a little boy should.
And I don't think I realized how whenever you're a kid, you're forming things and impressional and like things just kind of stick that you don't know stick. Anytime that I turn on Clue, I can easily recite every single word of that movie to a T. I can't do that in general, and I don't think I realize I can do that. I just really enjoyed this genre, and I think that this has really put a lot of emphasis on it. But I think that if you look before that, it was already kind of in a revitalization stage. This was just like the shock that brought people back, because you had the rebirth of Murder on the Orient Express. You've had various others, but I think that one kind of started it. And this one really was like, oh, this can be a thing again. Because since then you've had, Adam Sandler's murder mystery on Netflix. There's another one that's come out recently that was produced by like IFC called Werewolves Within or something like that. And it was another kind of murder mystery type thing. I found a list that I was a little unsatisfied with. It's got like Seven and Rear Window and Memento and some of those things. And I agree. But, this one, it's been so long since we've had any kind of try to figure it out yourself. And I think that is what I really enjoy about this movie. And the downside of that is, it loses a little bit of fun when you know how it actually ends. You don't get to solve the murder. But the things like Knives Out and Clue that they do really well is that they just give you a good movie and a good time, despite the fact that you know how it actually is going to end after the first time you see it. it's still entertaining to watch this movie. I don't care about the ending. I care about the whole story. And same thing with Clue. Clue provides me fun, humor. I know how it's going to end. It's got 3 different endings. So like it does a good job of just being like a fun time. And sometimes if a movie is reliant on who did it, it's not as much fun to continue watching it. But Knives Out is.
Yeah, a little bit of a window there, further into the depths of Garrett's mind. We knew Good Burger, we knew Crank. Now we know Clue is another key factor in that cog that creates the Garrett brain.
Absolutely.
And
probably the biggest, really.
Yeah, it's the foundational piece that the other two cogs turn. Yeah, but you're right. Recently I would consider, there's elements of the genre that obviously exist also in the horror franchise. At times you look at movies like even The Invisible Man, which has that kind of like mystery component to it. Recently on Netflix, you had Enola Holmes come out, and that is dipping into that Sherlock Holmes level of kind of mystery movie. And I think what really helps Knives Out stand out, as you can tell, I think we all just really love it. But is that, like you said, Garrett, it's not just the murder mystery part that it stands on. It's a really good like character piece too, because you have this family that is this kind of rich, for lack of a better word, rich white family. And they have their own eccentricities and differences. They're not all necessarily politically aligned, but they are motivationally aligned against our protagonist Marta when the shoe drops that she's getting their inheritance. And now all of a sudden you have, rich goop selling liberals and Trump supporting, right wingers coming together in unity against the minorities. Now it's a sad truth, but there's a interesting character piece and commentary, and it's, I remember seeing it in the theater, and there's a scene in the movie where the two sides are clearly debating politics, and they're clearly debating a former president, and you can see and hear laughing in the audience of people nudging each other of like, that feels like our family dynamic of, we don't all agree, but we're all still family. The running gags of none of them really know where her and her family's from. She's from Guatemala, she's from Argentina, she's from Brazil, whatever, it is. And then also just there's this, not to be left out, the charming relationship between Christopher Plummer as I forgot his first name. As something Harlan Thrombey. And all I can think of was Hugh. Harlan Thrombey and Marta. It's you really get the sense of a family feel in the movie, even when that family is kind of a bunch of jerks. I love the line from Benoit Blanc where he talks about a will reading is kind of like a community theater version of like a tax, something about taxes. I can't remember what it was now. Anyway. The characters really keep you coming back because they're so funny. They're also perfectly fleshed out, and there's always new things being revealed about them. There's more than one. There's more than just the murder mystery. There's a lot of little things being slowly dipped out about all the characters throughout the movie.
Yeah.
So
with an ensemble cast, you can run the risk of not enough people getting enough time, and somehow they do a really good job of balancing it to where you really do get an idea for how these people are just in general. I mean, they do such a good job of letting everybody shine in their own way. And you don't feel like anybody is left out at any point in time. Andrew, you're always big on character studies.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because the thing is that, you have, I don't know how many characters are in this. I want to say I'm talking about main characters. Okay, seems all right, 37.
Feels like it.
Feels like it. But the thing is that, you're right. It does a great job in that balancing act, and that can be hard. That can be incredibly hard. But you just enough to try to get to know each and every person. And and get to know each and every background and try to establish that type of relationship. And we know for a fact that like Benoit Blanc is we're essentially trying to be Benoit Blanc because he's studying everybody at this point. He's studying everybody. And I think the one standout character I will say is Ana de Armas, because she like that was, I would say that's a very tough role because we don't
first
know
major role also.
Yeah, her first major role. And it was tough for her. I feel like it was very tough for her because she has this thing of like, well, I'm either in on this or I'm not. And it kind of leaves you guessing up until the very end. And I enjoyed like seeing her in this. I'm like, wow, she's actually done a really good job. Every one of them did a really good job. The only thing I would say is that Chris Evans's character Hugh was a little too one-dimensional. Like, because everybody always says, well, he's the asshole of this group. Everybody calls him an asshole. And then he ends up being the killer. Spoiler alert, true story. He ends up being the killer. And to me, that was just a tiny bit of a letdown. I don't know why, but I was hoping for a little bit more of a twist because I'm just like, well, we're kind of establishing that he is the bad guy. Oh, wait a second. He is the bad guy. So,
but yeah. I understand that. And I do agree that it is pretty obvious that he is involved. But I think the bigger twist is that he was foiled, right? So I think the twist itself is that nothing happened, right? Mm-hmm. Like he tried, but nothing really happened. What you saw at the beginning ends up being what happened to an extent. But I think that in itself is the twist, is that I think the story is bigger than whodunit overall. I think it is a whodunit story, but I think it's a bigger thing of like, you're a jerk and you try to do things your way, but like you still get outsmarted by people who are doing the right thing. And so Ana de Armas,
like ultimately,
go ahead, David.
Oh, I was gonna just agree with you. Like ultimately, the story comes down to that idea of, and it's an idea that sometimes we don't always feel, but I think everybody wants to believe is that ultimately good people will win out over bad people, over deceptive people, because I mean it's not a coincidence that they focus in on Benoit Blanc and Ana de Armas really hard when he says, you did not mix up those drugs because you are a good nurse. Like you are what everybody has always claimed you were. You knew that you knew the medicine even without seeing. So like you can, like you've done nothing wrong in this entire situation. And that is not clear for the entire movie. Right. That aspect is kind of that's the revealing twist, is because you're watching it this entire time. And even if you kind of think like, I think Ransom has something to do with this, I really think he did, you still think to yourself, but she did mix up those drugs, and she thinks she mixed up those drugs the whole time. And so that revelation is such a sigh of relief for her and for the audience of like, the person we were rooting for really didn't do anything wrong. She was just a part of it. And you feel such a relief for her. That's the big reveal. That's the big twist, is not necessarily that Ransom was involved, because I think, it might be kind of obvious. Ransom shows up and he kind of has this attitude. He has this, he gives off this, this bravado of being kind of a dick. And it turns out he is.
Yeah, I mean, they're giving it to you the whole time. So, I mean, they're like, this guy's a dick. He delivered on his promise every waking moment of every waking minute that they described him that way.
And they try to challenge that by having him seem like he's on her side and stuff.
But so I agree. I think that it is obvious that he is involved, but I think that the bigger twist of the fact that she foiled him by just doing her job as like a good person and a nurse messed everything up for him every step of the way. And I think that is the bigger thing, is that finally the asshole that we're told is an asshole got something coming to him. Like he finally got the justice he deserves. It didn't go his way. He didn't end up killing him this way. And he's the one that got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
And in the process, he messed up the whole family, who are also a bunch of jerks who finally got what they got coming to him.
Yeah. And he, but let's not also leave out, he did kill that other person. He kills Fran, the housekeeper.
Yes, he also did kill Fran.
Which is one of those moments in a theater where the entire audience is like, I remember sitting there like when she throws up on him, and the audience like collectively realized, oh, she was lying, Fran's, and she's like, Fran's dead, and he's like, I mean, the him grabbing the knife, the whole thing, the slow-mo, everything about it, the slow realization that it is in fact a fake knife, which echoes what Harlan said towards the beginning of the movie, is like, these people are so pampered they can't tell the difference between a prop knife and a real one. It's this great symbology, and then just the whole audience quietly watching, and then Jim just go, shit. And then he gets back. It's such an Andrew Nichols type moment. Long silence and then curse word. It was it's such a perfect little moment.
Andrew, what else you got? Anything?
No, there is the one thing I will say that I loved was Harlan and who was Marta's Harlan and Marta's, like their relationship that they had, friendship that they had, and the fact that like Marta was freaking the hell out when she found out that she mixed up the drugs, and in the process of it, Harlan just pulls out his notebook and he starts scribbling down notes for his next book. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you just can't quit. Yeah. So I thought that was really funny. I thought that the pace, like, I'm jumping around a little bit. I thought the pacing of the movie was perfect. And it didn't feel like 2 hours. It flowed very smoothly. I have to commend Rian Johnson for this, because he's not a stranger to whodunits. He's not a stranger to this genre. Mm-hmm. If I can recommend any movie that was by like a mystery film at all, it's also by Rian Johnson. It's called Brick. And it stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and it is incredibly good. It is Rian Johnson's breakout movie. It's the movie that made him who he is, and he knows what he's doing in that genre. He knows what he's doing in it, and that's the one thing that's the one movie that made him like, oh hey, let's take a look at it. So he knows how to like.
I will say that Brick has shown up on several of the lists that I looked at for like whodunit movies as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brick is just absolutely amazing. And it's very well written and very well spoken.
Well, we'd be remiss to not talk about the fact that after the movie came out, and this is in that same 2019 review, we talk about how so great this is an original movie, and we're like, we were all equally, because there were rumors. There were already rumors on the fence of the idea of a sequel to Knives Out, because we're all sitting here going like, I love that it's like a completely out of nowhere thing.
Yeah.
And then we were all like, and I would kind of love to see more, but I also don't want to see it get watered down or somehow become caught up in this world of franchises and stuff, and there be like Knives Out 10, 10, 15 years from now or whatever.
I hope what I would really like him to do, and maybe he is, because it is an anthology thing, right? So it's always going to be something different. So I kind of hope that he is doing an Agatha Christie type thing, where as long as the stories are original, I don't necessarily care if Benoit Blanc is a central figure, right? He can solve his murders, but right. I feel like they would still be, and we can have this discussion, an original movie, because he is coming up with all new characters outside of Benoit Blanc. He's coming up with his own original stories. And so while you do have a different figure, or you have a central figure, you have different surroundings. And so I would hope that instead of like Knives Out 2. I don't know what the upcoming movie title is going to be or is, if it's already been confirmed, but I certainly hope that it's not Knives Out 2. And I would hope that it would be like a different title, but it's probably not.
I think this is where we got the other bit of conversation that you may remember, Garrett, is that when it was announced earlier this year, we talked about Netflix buying the rights to Knives Out, to 2 Knives Out sequels. $450 million Netflix paid. So one of the highest, I think it's the highest to date amount of money paid for rights to a movie franchise. And so in the near future, we will be getting Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3, maybe different title, different things. My suggestion was The Other Shoe. I think that's I was trying to think of other like common idioms that we use, because in the movie he talks about the phrase, "You're all buzzards at the table, knives out and beaks open," or something like that. And I was trying to think of other like idioms like that, and I was like, when the other shoe drops, I was like, oh, he called it the other shoe. I don't know. I'm trying to give like things to come up with here, but like, who knows? Ryan names it whatever he wants to. Huge, and we've talked about the cast a little bit. We have all collectively been freaking out for like a year over different casting announcements. Leslie Odom Jr., Catherine Hahn, Edward Norton. I think Dave Bautista's in this thing. Who else? There was somebody else.
Yeah,
anyway.
I can't. It's another A-list stacked cast. They've got big people coming in,
and that is something I can support in terms of a franchise, is regular modern takes on the murder mystery genre with a stellar cast and the constant of Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc. Continually coming back. I'm all for that. Hopefully this next one takes place on a boat or something, something different.
Yeah, because we know we're never going to get that Agatha Christie movie that has been delayed several times and has Armie Hammer in it. That movie will never see the light of day.
One of my most anticipated of 2020s, and now it's got cannibal Armie Hammer and anti-vaxxer Letitia Wright in it. And who knows if that movie's ever going to come out.
I know. It is not politically speaking friendly right now. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
No, and
it'll be like straight to DVD in Walmart or something.
I'd watch it.
Straight to Paramount.
I wouldn't tell anybody I'd watched it, but I watch it. Before we get into the box office stuff, I just want to hit on a couple of things. Yes, Benoit Blanc, one of the greatest original characters in recent memory, in my opinion. He is so good, so funny. A donut hole inside a donut hole is one of my favorite things ever. It's so funny with the way that he thinks and processes. It is so good. I think that, in my opinion, as someone who hasn't watched James Bond until recently, go watch those or listen to those episodes. Benoit Blanc has surpassed Daniel Craig's version of James Bond, in my opinion. Yeah. It's such a fun thing. And then I also noticed this watch around to add to the dynamic of the family dysfunction. Whenever they're going through at the beginning and recounting the birthday, I enjoy the fact that it changes who is standing next to Harlan every single time that someone's recounting it to make them feel like they are the most important person in his lives. And it was very funny to see that develop. I hadn't noticed that in the past.
Yeah, that's such a fun little how everybody views themselves in the narrative, So good. What were the words of the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?
So many great ones.
So good.
Well, let's move over to the box office now. We're getting a little low in time.
That's true. Knives Out is Knives Out opened November 27th of 2019, not that long ago. Knives Out is one of those movies that holds a unique place in that it is a very, very successful movie at the box office, and yet was never in the number one spot. Knives Out opened number 2. I'm going to get a little complicated here, but I'll try to simplify it. So since it opened on Thanksgiving weekend, that's technically a 5-day weekend because it opened on a Wednesday. So its 5-day total was 41 million for its opening 5-day weekend. Its 3-day total, which is just that Friday to Sunday, was 26 million. Now, Knives Out could have had that number one spot. It had the unfortunate task of opening up against Frozen 2, which in its second weekend brought in a lot, 125 million over that same 5-day period. Right behind it, at number 3, another movie I really like, Ford versus Ferrari.
Mhm.
At number 4, another movie I know the crowd here really likes, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And at number 5, you have Queen and Slim, bringing in 16 million.
2019 was a banger year for movies, y'all. It was a good
great
year.
year. Great year for movies. Like what a slam dunk. The movie Knives Out would go on to make a collective. Sorry, I lost my number here. It would go on and make. I'm sorry, $165 million in the U.S., 146 million overseas, for a worldwide total of $311 million, which is pretty good on a $40 million budget. They didn't really make a lot of merchandise for it, so I don't know how it did in terms of merchandising, but yeah, I think that those home video sales are really good as well. Plus, now with Netflix paying, like Netflix just churning over money to Ryan Johnson, saying, "Hey, make more of these." On the year, Knives Out would finish in the, where is it here? 165. Knives Out would finish in the number 15 spot for 2019. Not too bad of a finish, especially for an original film. Even the original films did pretty good that year. The highest grossing original film of 2019 was Us, which brought in 175 million. Number 1 movie of 2019. I don't have to speculate with you. We all know it's Avengers Endgame. At number 2, it's Andrew's favorite movie of 2019, The Lion King, the CG remake that he gave a whopping 3 stars. And if you can go back to our mid-year of 2019 to listen to Andrew's glowing review for that. At number 3, Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. At number 4, Frozen 2. And at number 5, Toy Story 4 is a big year. I want to say, though, like we said, 2019 banger year. Even the movies that were like Oscar nominated actually did really well at the box office, because Knives Out was the number 15 movie of the year. 1917 was the 17th highest grossing movie of the year. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was in number 20. You had movies like Ford versus Ferrari made over $100 million as well. So it was a pretty good movie, even for like the Oscar contenders that year.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up there. It's I'm interested to see where the future takes us in terms of Knives Out. We won't be having box office stats for that, but Netflix has recently started releasing highest streams for a given week. So we'll have to see how Knives Out finishes that first week.
I will also predict that this will have some box office numbers, because Netflix will release it in theaters because they do want it to be an Oscar movie.
Yeah, that could happen. That could happen. We could see a little bump there too.
Yeah. So let's.
You're leading the Letterboxd game.
Yeah, I am leading the Letterboxd game. So for those of you that are just listening for the first time, Letterboxd is a great app that we use to rate movies and be a part of a big giant film community. We all have our own personal accounts. somanysequels has a personal account as well that we use. We try to guess the closest to the star rating on a 1 to 5 scale. So you guys can just take a guess. What do you think? Where does the Letterboxd community land on Knives Out?
So I'm going to guess it's like a 3.7.
3.7 from
I think it's higher than that, but I'm going to guess that the haters have lowered.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 4.2.
4.2. Very close. Close game, but one winner is Andrew. Knives Out has a 4.0 on. Good for Knives Out. It can be hard to get a 4.0 score on Letterboxd, so it is one that people enjoy.
It is. I'm surprised it hasn't been lowered down by, a lot of times a really good movie, get those really high reviews, and then a bunch of people will see it like years later and go, "What was all the fuss of this about?" And then they'll like give it low ratings. I would never do such a thing.
No.
But
what do we give it our own personal score? What do we think?
This is a 5.
5 stars all of a sudden from Andrew for a movie that he loves but didn't put in his top.
Not in his top 10 for 2019 though.
Now listen, in retrospect, I was wrong. I'm going to go ahead.
As long as you can admit it, then I'll accept it and move on.
It was not in Garrett's top 10 either.
I also believe that wholeheartedly.
Yes, but Garrett also had 70 movies in his top in his list that year. This man rated like Toy Story 4 like 19 or something like that.
I didn't like Toy Story 4.
I don't
I did
remember
like
what it
Toy
was.
Story 4, but I didn't like Toy Story.
So it was something like that. Josh was like, had some movie that he was like, this is a great movie, but I had to put it at number 27 because that's how many movies are on my list. I'm going to also give it, I looked back at what I gave it. I'm also going to give it 5 stars. This is definitively one of my favorite movies.
Knives Out was my number 10. Thank you very much.
Oh,
At least on my list now. I may have revamped
that may have been changed. I have you on audio.
I believe that. I'm sure I changed it. I go back and adjust.
That's true. I do too. Rise of Skywalker has been sort of migrating down my list of 2020.
I think he called
it 2019.
In 2019. Garrett called it 11 in 2019.
Interesting.
What do you got, Andrew? What's yours?
I already said it.
Oh, you did? Mine is then I go 4.5. I forgot. I don't know what the average is.
So it's probably like a 4.7.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
we'll figure it out. That's it, guys. We're done. Oh my goodness, we did it.
No, Josh, and we made it through.
Yeah, we've got this is our little Thanksgiving episode. Hope everybody's having fun with their families. If you're listening to this with your family, thanks. Cool. That's weird, but cool. We've got Christmas coming up. We haven't announced any of our movies yet, but we always enjoy Christmas time. We're going to get some great holiday movies in here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Follow us on our So Many Sequels social media accounts. I don't know what they are, but Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I'm sure we're all there. Letterboxd, of course, as well. somanysequels.com, I think, has it all. So, and then make sure you follow and subscribe. Give us a review, 5 stars, just like Knives Out almost was. I ruined the party, but whatever.
Yeah, we already have 2 5-star reviews on iTunes. So if you would like to join in on that, help us stay a 5-star podcast.
So we will see you next week with whatever we've got coming up. Follow us and you'll find out too. Bye.